Let's do it,
Welcome,
man.
welcome to another episode of that Grief Relief podcast. Again, we are having far too much fun even before the podcast has even begun. My name is Katie Overy, and today I'm joined again on Zoom from Colorado in the United States of America, Mr. Tony Lynch. Now, hello, Tony. How are you?
I am doing well. How you're doing?
I'm really good, thank you. So, what are we? About 12, just gone 12 noon in Colorado, and we're 10 p.m. in Dubai.
So we're about what 10 hours,
Yeah.
10 hours different,
Yeah,
I believe.
you're behind. You're still enjoying your Sunday, your lazy Sunday afternoon.
This is very true, but I guess it depends on how you look at it. I could go, hey, it's 10 o'clock there. I'm up and ready to move around. So
I'm ready for bed. Tony and I connected on Instagram because Tony also has a podcast with regards to grief, and again born from his own experiences. Tony, memories for us. Tell us all about that, because you're a non-profit that does so much more than just a podcast. You're a community, aren't you?
we're a community of men, as memories of us, and so we are a
Did I say it
community of
wrong? Did I
men.
say memories of
No,
us
no,
or
you're
memories
you're
for us?
fine.
Oh, okay.
Sometimes memory for us, memories of us, but it is memories of us.
Memories
Just
of
in case it's
us.
rated. And so, yeah, we are a community of men who have struggled with loss and grief with our loved ones, and we found each other, and so we support each other. We have these conversations that men, I feel, should be having for the
Mm,
benefit of our own mental health, and to start the healing process, to help develop tools for each other, and but better than that, to be there for one another in and outside of group.
yeah.
And so the podcast was a way to show how normal these conversations can be, but sometimes you just got to put it out there and so other people can see it. And so
Yeah.
yeah, that's we are a community of men who have struggled and but have rebuilt ourselves.
Which is, yeah, we obviously had a really lovely chat before we sort of officially hit record, because again, because it's born from your own experience, and then you've decided to use that and harness everything that you've been through to help others. And it's not just the grief of loss of loved ones, because my goodness, you've lost a number of loved ones, and I'd love you to tell us the story. But even more so, as and the words you used was absolute rock bottom. So how did it all start? What was the beginning, and what was that, drive for you to then want to help other people because of what you've been through?
Well, it took a long time for me to realize what grief was. Um, and I guess it started from when I was maybe around 23, 24, when I lost my first grandmother. And then it just trickled after that. I started losing my grandmothers every year. So we started with the younger one, and we lost the oldest one last.
Okay.
And so then from there, let's see, I lost my father 10 years ago. 3 months after that, I lost my little brother. 2 months after that, I lost my uncle, which is my dad's brother. And then a year after that, I lost my grandfather. And so, we go through the middle, and I've lost majority of my friends just through, bad choices that we've made, the lifestyle that
Mm,
we've lived.
mm.
And so it's just been a continuous thing. And then 5 years ago, I lost my son. My son passed away.
Oh my
And then
goodness.
2 years after my son passed away, my mother passed away. And then last year, I lost my last grandmother during COVID. And as a man being in society, that can be a very, very lonely, hard road, especially when you're on your own. I have one sister, and so I really cherish her being around. But other than that, it's just been this struggle,
I mean,
trying to
I can't.
navigate through those things.
Yeah, I've said this before, because I've had a lot of death in my life, but not in quite such quick succession. And as well, obviously the big one there, I have to point out, not that any of them aren't important, but a parent losing a child is, it must just be. I mean, how on earth did you compute any of these losses, let alone in the quick succession that they were?
That was the thing. I was so used to being to people telling me, you got to suck it up, you got to keep your head up, you got to, don't cry, it's going to be okay, and all of these things. Um, and I really was not okay mentally. I struggle. My mental health was in a place where I don't wish no one um,
Mm-hmm.
could travel to, so to speak. Um, my son, I guess that's where the deepest part of the journey began, because I watched my son suffer a massive overdose from his pharmacist. She mixes medication wrong. So that was the first start with it. And I guess that's what kind of triggered everything else. 9 months later, he passed away, and no one knows why.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I isolated really, really hard. I really did. I didn't want to be around nobody. I isolated. I stayed in my home for 2 years. And from that 2 years, it was just, my addiction wasn't in alcohol or drugs. My addiction was in lifting weights. I was trying to literally hurt myself.
Uh-huh.
And
Literally
so I know
sweat,
it's,
sweat it out, blood, sweat, and tears.
well, yeah, I mean, you figure, it'd be one of those times when you throw so much weight up there, you pick it up and it falls down in your chest. So that's what I was hoping would do. Maybe mess up and,
Yeah. Yeah.
because I was done with the pain. I was tired of the pain, and it just wouldn't go anywhere. And so coming out of that, I made bad, bad decisions, and I lost everything. I did. And then shortly as I was starting to lose everything, I lose my mother. So my mother had a stroke 2 years after my son passed away. And now, I'm adding on all of this. Life is not good
Mm, mm,
at all.
mm,
At least
mm.
in my perspective, it wasn't. And I struggled. I struggled really, really hard. And eventually, I started to plan out my own suicide. Um,
Wow. Okay. Are you happy to talk us through that?
yeah, I'm not ashamed to say it, because I realize it's part of the natural walk when it comes to grief, especially when we think about what men, and how we try to deal with things. we
Mm.
we don't deal with them well, especially in something
Okay.
that we can't control, right? We
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
control grief, and it's such an unknown factor in our lives that, when we can't control something, we become very destructive
Mm-hmm.
in every aspect of it, even self-destructive. So, you know it took me it didn't take long. Friends and things that I had around began to fall back into their normal routines. So
Yeah.
I started I when I finally started to um ponder the idea of just taking my life, I was at my version of rock bottom. So I planned it out in between my friends, who would come visit me, who would call me, all of these things. And so when it became very, further and further apart, I told myself, well, I have an open window. No
Yeah.
one needs to know. And if I
Mm-hmm.
can keep on a face to keep people from um, getting a glimpse of what I was doing, I would be
Mm.
okay. But I had already put everything into perspective. I went, I'm alone in this world. I'm empty. I don't know what I'm supposed to do. The one thing that I thought I was supposed to do was be a father,
Yeah.
and that's taken away. And so
Mm.
now I'm no longer a father or a son. I'm no longer a big brother. I'm no longer a grandson, any of these things. So I went, there's nothing else left for me. There really isn't. And I'm not going to keep going through life like this. So I planned it out, and I picked the weekend. I got off work, and I drove up to Utah that Friday after work, and I fished. I said my goodbyes and asked my son and my mother to forgive me for what I was going to do. I made my mind up,
Mm.
and I did. I fished all day long, and then I was just done. Nothing else. I was done. I was done. I surrendered. And I drove the next day to the middle of the desert, and that's where I attempted to take my life. And something intervened. Don't know what, but it shocked me to a point to where I heard a voice, and I knew I was out there by myself. At least I thought.
Mm.
So the last thing I wanted to do was have someone have that image in their head. Because
Okay.
Lord knows, you watch enough people pass away, you have enough. I know what that feels like. I wasn't going to do that to anyone. So,
Mm,
immediately threw the gun in the car and walked around, and it's pitch black. There's no one out here except for me. And I realized at that moment um, that something had changed in me. A light went off. And I started just reflecting back on my life. And I went, um, there's something to this. What is this
mm,
that I'm going through?
mm,
So I drove back to Colorado, and I began to do research about, loss and what is this that I'm going through, you know? So I started to educate myself. Then I started noticing similarities because when you're in a hurt state of mind, and I was at my version of rock bottom anyway.
mm, mm,
So I
mm.
figured I couldn't go any further down. There has to be a way for me to climb myself out.
Yeah.
And so I began to read these books. I began to develop my own tools, and I began to climb myself out of this hole. And it was as if this hole was this deep well.
Mm.
And I love saying this because it just makes perfect sense to me. It was this deep well, and as I'm going through the worst moments in my life, I felt trapped. So
Mm.
I'm waiting for someone to come and rescue me. And then one day it was like someone was throwing me a lifeline. And every time I would go to go grab the line, they would pull the rope and kick dirt down the hole, right?
Oh.
Uh, right. They would pull the rope up and kick dirt down the hole. I'm like, okay, so if you're going to bury me alive, go ahead and do it. I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Don't prolong this. But then I realized what it was doing. The things that I was learning, I was able to start taking the dirt and packing it down, and I was able to stand on it.
Oh my
And
goodness,
then,
that is such a
yeah,
great way of visualizing it.
right. So, and it was eventually I got to the top, and I
Of
was able to
course.
pull myself out of the hole. And I looked around, I went, okay, so if I'm able to do this, what else can I do?
Wow.
And so I had this grand idea. I went, I just want to see what's out there because I know now I need some help. But when I went to go search, there was nothing out there. And the ones that
Specifically
were out
what?
there,
What were you looking for?
I was looking for a support group.
Okay.
Um, I was looking for a support group. I was looking for resources, because I realized that in order for me to do this, I couldn't do it alone.
Mm-hmm.
But then I found myself doing it alone
Mm.
because there was nothing out there. Most of the things I found was for women or co-ed or for children, and it was just nothing out there. Then I started realizing I went, if I can get to this point, I wonder what does this mean. So I started looking up the 5 stages of grief, and I went, my 5 stages never looked like that. My 5 stages look very, very destructive. Then
Mm.
then something clicked in me, and I went, that's that's the key. I said, there's more men running around right now going through grief and don't understand it. And the misunderstanding between men and women is that this is what women see. They don't know that we're going through grief. So I went, okay. So I wanted to start a nonprofit, which I did 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago.
Okay.
And I wanted to provide resources and support to men like myself.
Mm.
And we began to build this community. We began to connect with other men across the board in Colorado. And but there was still something missing, I was
Okay.
going, there's something else. So I told my friend, I said, I want to start a podcast. He goes, based around what? I said, based around men having conversations, talking about their loss and grief as a way to connect with other men,
Mm.
because there has to be a way. So that was I started the podcast. I began hosting Memories of Us podcast 10 months now,
Okay.
and so from there we've been able to reach more men. And then when COVID hit, everything kind of went virtual, so we was able to really adapt to the virtual world. And what that did, it helped me connect with other countries. in other
Hmm.
states. And so yeah, we began collaborating back and forth, and so yeah.
And what was your first feeling about, hang on, how can I word this? When you started the community, did you find it quite cathartic for you as well?
Well, yeah, because that's part of your healing is to
Mm,
be able to be around someone else that understands. And I didn't understand that connectiveness. I just knew there was something to it. And with the community that we were around, or starting to come together, our conversations were different.
okay.
Our conversations were different. Like, we wasn't talking about sports. We were talking about our loved ones and the
Mm,
memories. we
mm,
were we were starting to talk about moments that we've had with them, conversations that we've had with them, and it was such a normal thing. And I knew right then and there, I'm right where I need to be.
yeah, wow. And that must have been like quite an amazing feeling to have, and just all of a sudden realize that you're not alone, and then picturing yourself back in the middle of the desert in Utah, just thinking, what was I thinking?
Well, yeah, it's a different feeling when you hit that version of rock bottom and you just feel
Mm,
like you have nothing else left. Like, I was done fighting, and for most men, that's hard to admit when you have no more fight in you. You
mm,
know, I always tell people I'm built for battle. You're like, you can't
yeah,
tell me to surrender, right?
yeah.
And I remember after that moment, I talked to my uncle, and he just said he gave me some really really good advice. He goes, sometimes you have to put down the notion to fight, and sometimes you just have to surrender to what you're going through.
Mm,
And for the longest time, I was like, how can you tell me to surrender to something when I've been fighting my whole entire life? So that was a turning point to
mm.
surrender to the process and begin to allow myself to grieve and feel the things that I was going through. And it was such a it was such a beautiful feeling to be able to cry and not feel as if I was weak, you know.
And is that something that's come up? I mean, I know that's very much a, boys don't cry kind of thing. But what about your upbringing, your family, and things like that? Was that very much instilled in you then as well?
Yeah, my mother used to always tell me that, I used to get myself in trouble a lot when I was a kid. So my mother, she got tired of arguing, fussing at me and carrying on, and so she started beating me up, so to speak. She was like, "Boy, I'm tired of you. I'm gonna whoop you, man." I was like, "You're not gonna do nothing," and so she used to beat me all the time. And for the most part, I deserved maybe 25% of it. I think the
I
other
don't know why I'm
75%
laughing.
she made
That's
it
your
up.
fault. You're making me laugh. I'm just talking about child abuse. It's absolutely fine. I'm just laughing here. Right.
Well,
Okay.
it's
So obviously, when she did that, you would be in pain. You'd be crying for her to
yeah,
stop.
she used to tell me, she goes, I'm not raising a punk, so you need to suck it up and stop crying. And so I just got used to her hitting me, right? And
Hmm.
so I just got used to it. And it was like, I'm not going to cry because she used to always wait for it. She goes, you keep it up. I'm going to give you something to cry for. So I remember and I don't know, am I able to cuss?
Yes, you are. I can bleep you
Okay.
out accordingly.
Well, I was such a smart ass with my mother. And so she used to tell me, you better stop crying. I'll give you something to cry for. And I used to look at her, go, didn't you just give me something to cry for? And that's the reason why I'm here now.
Oh
And she
no.
goes, are you, and she give me another one. And I just look at her, and she goes, you about to cry? I go, no, ma'am, I'm not about to cry. And I go walk off and cry. So yeah.
But you've never let
But,
her see that. Now, and I think, I don't know whether sort of the majority of my listeners, as far as I understand, I think are of my generation, probably our generation. We're
mm,
similar ages, I think. But that's only the generation above us. My mum had a wooden spoon, and if we were naughty, we got a wooden spoon on the back of our legs. Now, not many people agreed with that, and it was kind of it's fading out, and I get that, but it sounds awful when you think about it. But to me, her giving you a beating actually isn't the worst part of that whole story. It's the
no.
whole boys don't cry and you have to suck it up kind of
Hmm.
thing. Um,
Well,
and
yeah.
then for you to have gone on and had all of this trauma and all of this grief, heaven knows what was going in, through your mind to be like, at what point am I allowed to cry and am I allowed to show signs of weakness?
And that comes with time, and usually it comes from something triggering that.
Mm,
And I realized that throughout time, throughout the losses, throughout the journey that I've been on, it's been slowly but surely building up. And then it just took that one when I was old enough, and pretty much had enough, that that one incident that I never thought was going to happen
mm,
happened.
mm,
And from that point, it was like something inside of me just cracked open, and I could no longer contain it anymore. And it made me angry because I was feeling, I was feeling at my weakest moment, and I was trying to hold it in. So I
mm,
became very, very angry with myself. I became, because, we get taught as young men, like, this is not what a man is supposed to do. You're not supposed to
mm,
have these emotions. You're not supposed to cry or feel. You have to be strong. You have to fix everything, And when, when that moment cracked me open, is like everything that I've been taught went out the window. So there was a conflict of interest within myself.
mm,
On one hand, I'm ready to break. I'm on the verge of breaking. And on the other hand, the side of me that's going, no, let's pick yourself up, suck it
mm,
up, and let's keep moving. So it
mm,
was a conflict of interest between myself. And then I realized, why am I doing this? Who taught me this? This makes absolutely no sense. I'm a human being.
mm.
I am born with these things. So why am I neglecting myself? And it was just many, many nights of just nightmares, and curled up on the floor trying to figure out where I was going to go. And
When sorry to interrupt because I'm it's very unusual to be able to talk to someone quite openly about the fact that they were willing to take their life, and this is one of the reasons about how I do the podcast, because we haven't spoken before and I don't know your story,
right,
is because most people want to ask these questions, that are going through their mind. When you were out there in the middle of the desert, were you scared?
no,
What
I
do
had.
you remember what was going on through in your mind?
Oh yeah, I remember telling myself this is the best way. This way, I don't have to be a burden. I don't have to I don't have to tell anyone how I feel. My life had just fallen apart,
Mm,
so I had nothing. I had no home, so it wasn't like, I'm leaving a whole lot behind. The things that I had was so minimum, that, you know, it was, I was at that moment to where I didn't see the purpose of me going on. So no, I wasn't afraid. I was determined to just end it. I really was. I just given up. Y- Most people, when they get to a point of suicide, it's usually because they've given up inside the hope,
mm,
everything. There's nothing else left. We've tried everything. At least I thought I tried everything. And I was just one of the fortunate ones that I didn't become a number, and that somehow, some way, it, there was some sort of intervention, like it
yeah,
was my time.
yeah. And
So, and
usually there are people that are left behind, and then that's when obviously the selfish aspect comes in when people take their own
mhm.
life. But as you were saying, apart from your sister, and obviously of course you want to live with for your sister, but to you there was no one, nothing to live for.
No, well, because I've been on my own since I was 15.
Mm,
So, and I'm 46 now. So I had to navigate this world, um, and pretty much figure it out as I was going along.
mm,
And it wasn't the easiest of things, because there was one point in my life of 20 years where I was part of a gang. So if you add in all of that and all of the things that go on in gangs and losing
mm,
friends, it was one of those things. It was just keep moving, accept things the way that they are, and just keep moving. So I had to start to view life a little bit different. It's like, this is natural. People die.
mm,
No matter how we die, the choices that we make sometimes speeds up the process.
mm,
And so I lost a lot of my friends through that process. The process was sped up, and it was, I wanted to grieve for them. I wanted to mourn for them, but I was more angry at how they were killed, or
Yeah, yeah.
in other words. And
Because that
so,
could definitely have been avoided. Like that's the most frustrating thing, isn't it, with life
mhm.
choices in those situations?
But at that time, I didn't feel that if there was any choice, like this happened, we have to go do something. So it was automatically, I
Yeah.
was able to keep myself in a constant state of anger.
Mm,
So it made navigating that hard but easy because I didn't have to have emotions. I was angry all the time. So getting out of that, and I think it was the last time I lost a really good friend of mine. He was killed, and so I decided to get out of that. I was growing up. I was going. I can't do it no more. Everyone I know is gone.
yeah.
So I got out of that. Went been homeless again. So everything had been repetitious throughout my life. I knew that I knew what it was like to be homeless. So it wasn't like leaving one place of comfort and jumping into another place and having to figure it out from that rock bottom, build myself back up. And I would, over and over and over again. Like it's just repetitions. I knew when
Yeah.
it was going to happen. So I
Yeah.
pretty much was going, okay, I need to get rid of everything. I need to narrow myself down to a backpack, and I have to keep moving. And it's a funny thing because I look at it and I said, homeless and everything, but now I look back and life was just moving me around. It was
Mm,
taking me out of one place, going, your time here is up. So we're going to have to travel light. You're not going to like this part of the journey, but it's going to be okay. So
mm.
I learned how when I hit my version of rock bottom to pick myself up. Now, the last time I hit my version of rock bottom, I didn't know how to pick myself up because I was tired from the previous times I had to pick
Yeah.
myself
At
up.
what point do you just think I just need a break now?
Yeah, I know it sounds crazy when I say it, but that's the best way I can do it. It was like every time I've hit my version of rock bottom, it got deeper and deeper. And then the last time I went, I'm so tired of doing this. This time I went, I'm an orphan. I have no
Ugh.
one. My
Mm,
sister don't know who I am.
mm,
The last time me and my sister was my best friend. So the best memories I've had of her was when I was 15. Now, when we was together the last time was already I was already in my 40s. So
mm.
there's years where my sister don't know nothing about me,
Yeah.
and I figured it would be so much easier if I kept it that way. I have four nieces that don't even know they know I'm their uncle, but they know nothing about me. They
Yeah.
know rumors and stories about me, but they don't know me personally. So again, it's one of those, if I did this, who am I really hurting?
Yeah. I mean, that's obviously what's going through your mind.
Right,
Obviously, the intervention happened in Utah, and you're obviously still with us today.
hmm
Has there been a time remotely since that you've even thought about it?
No. Ever since I've been on this journey and started this nonprofit, I found, as what they say, I know what I'm supposed to do now.
Mm,
Going through all of that, I found my purpose. And it just goes back to, that old saying, the two most important days in a person's life is when you're born, and then you find out why, right?
oh,
So
okay.
I found out why I was put here. I found out why I went through all of this.
Mm,
And it was doing what I'm doing now. It gives me a reason to get up in the morning, right? I still grieve. Don't get me wrong. I still
mm,
grieve. The pain is still there, but it gives me an outlet for my pain to help someone else out. So it makes it. I'm not gonna say it makes it worth it because no one should have to go through that much. But I get it though. I get it. We're all on loan to each other,
mm.
but it's what we do while we're here. And I figured while I'm here, I might as well build something that can outlast me, that could be beneficial long after I'm gone. And this was it. And so I look at everything now as a blessing. I had 8 years of my son, right? And he passed away. Yes, that's painful. But the beautiful part about it is that I got 8 years. Most people don't get that,
Yeah.
you know? I got the chance to know all of my grandmothers, even though they passed away. I got the chance to listen to their stories and be taught and just be a part of all of that.
Mm,
And now look at my life now and I go, there's a lot more to this and it's bigger than me. And that keeps me doing the things that I'm doing to be a part of something that's bigger than me, to give
mm,
back, you know, give back something that was given to me. And most people would say that's your gift and everything. And I strongly believe that I can give my gift away now, but it took going through tragedy
yeah.
to create that gift.
Mm,
And that
mm,
gift came out and said, you know what? It's not as bad as what you think. You can have something else on the other side if you follow me. So I started to develop a relationship with my grief.
mm,
And it became this thing of understanding and going, how can I use this to help someone else?
mm.
And that question right there has led me down roads that I I've been blessed and fortunate on that road
Well,
to be
I'm
able to share my story and
yeah.
um yeah.
And that's what I was going to say is that, I'm so grateful for you for telling your stories. And we've barely touched on memories of us because I still want to get into that because it's so interesting what you just said then in terms of there must be people within your memories of us community, the men in your community that are eternally grateful for the trauma you've been through because as you've said, if it wasn't for this, if it wasn't this, it wasn't for this, you wouldn't have created this. And in turn you've helped all of these people. I mean, the outpouring of messages and support that must just keep you going every single day.
Well, it does. And but I often remind the men when they come to the groups that I'm really not doing anything. I'm just there. Yeah, I provide topics that we could talk about because I think that they're important when it comes
Mm,
down to men and understanding the new roles that we are
mm.
now taking over. It was just something I was blessed and fortunate to be put in a position to build a platform. But I'm even more blessed that the men took the chance to come and be a part of this. See, I can't do this alone, you
No,
know?
for sure. But you are, as you say, you are that guy. And I think it's interesting you say you didn't do anything, but you're the guy that invites everyone down the pub because if it wasn't for you, none of us would go out and socialize, probably. Do you know what I mean? Like, you're the team captain. You're the guy that gets everybody together to play football on a Sunday because without you, we'd all be sitting in front of the TV all day. And do you know what I mean? That sort of thing.
No.
Without you, these men would not be talking about grief and their feelings and getting through it.
Yeah, but I appreciate. I have a hard time. And you have to forgive me. I have a hard time with people
Take the
complimenting.
compliment.
Yeah, I want to take the compliment, but I can't take full responsibility for it. For the
Mm,
simple fact of I can invite you down to the pub, right? But it's up to you to come.
true. Yeah, of
So
course. Yeah,
I
true.
go. I'm pretty blessed that people took the took the invite and said I'm going to show up. And
But
so
you've
for
made the
me,
pub a nice environment, and that's why people want to come to the pub. And
okay, I
then
would take that.
that's what you're going to take. And so in your pub, in Tony Lynch's pub, in it's also I think one of those places where which I think is obviously what's happened with Memories of Us anyway is you've invited a guy down to your pub, you've made the pub an incredibly welcoming space. He's gone out, spoken to his friend who's going through a shit time. Oh, I swore on my own podcast. Um,
We're gonna
um,
bleep that out.
we're gonna bleep that out. Giving myself more editing for goodness sake. Um, yeah, and then he's gone. Do you know what? You should come down Tony Lynch's pub. It's amazing, and I think
Yeah,
that's what you've done. So you don't even need to comment. I've given you that compliment, and you can just take it.
I'm just gonna take her. I'm not even gonna. I'm not gonna
You-
fight with you no more.
Listen, I'm tougher. I'm
not even
tougher than
gonna
I
fight. I
look.
realize this is a lost cause fighting with
Yeah,
you right now.
yeah, that's
But
true.
that's
That's
okay.
right.
I got you coming back. I got you coming
Good.
back.
Right.
But
So,
no,
talking happy thoughts then in terms of Memories of Us, like what's next for Memories of Us? What is it you're looking to do moving into, I guess, the next part of 2021 and onwards and upwards?
Well, the goal is to keep putting the word out there, to keep reaching more people, to keep connecting with different organizations across the world, to create this grief network.
Mm,
So it's easier for people to connect with these organizations and be able to have that support to, no matter where you are, because it's not a competition. Grief is something that we're going to experience at some point or another. And I want to
yeah.
make sure that we create the biggest opportunity for everyone to connect, to
Hmm.
be supported and be around you. As they say, find your tribe.
Yeah.
So what we've managed to do this year coming into 2020 is to connect with people internationally now. So
Okay.
we're working on putting up 6 different satellite locations in the UK, Germany, London, working on one in Bali. So that was yeah, I mentioned
Yeah,
that
we spoke
earlier.
about that before.
Yeah.
Bali, it's so random. How has
Mhm.
that even come about? If you can give us any slight insight.
It came about a podcast interview I did, which it was a trickle of events, right? So, so to speak, it was. Let me see if I can put it in simpler terms so it don't sound so crazy. So, I did a
I quite
podcast
like
interview.
crazy. You're
Me
okay.
too, a little bit, a little bit, little crazy goes a long ways, uh, you know. But I had venture off my guests on my podcast started changing. So it started changing places, and I started realizing that the people I'm starting to interview, there was something to this. So I interviewed a guy. Um, he had lost his daughter to a very rare disease, and I had him on the show. He's a world-renowned music therapist, and he connected me with someone else which was a part of this large men's group that I never even knew about. Right? Here. I am advocating for men. I'm going, wow. Like we have this group
Mm.
in. So that's how that happened. And I met a guy in one of these men's groups, and he went, I've seen your post, and I'm really interested in working with you. So I'm going, okay, where are you from? He goes, well, I'm from Bali. This is my organization right here. So that's how that came about.
And
And
is
I
he
go, well, how?
Balinese or is he an expat in Bali?
Um, uh, I couldn't really say. His English
Okay.
is very, very well.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking he was just a visitor. Maybe he's an implant over there,
Mm.
and
Mm.
just decided to stay. Bali's beautiful,
Yeah.
and so he just decided to stay and start this organization. And so we ended up connecting, and he went, what would you think about doing, support groups, working with me to put together curriculums. And I realized that we had a very similar mission statement. I went, okay, well, let's do something. And so that's how the Ballet Adventure came about. And most of all the different other locations that we were working with all came through the podcast.
Amazing.
Yeah, they all came through the podcast, and I went, I couldn't ask for anything better. But that just led into so many other connecting with um, some other great men's groups in the United States, and being able to set up different satellite locations across the United States. Our goal right now is just to keep growing.
Mm.
It's just to keep growing, connecting each other across, and yeah, seeing where that takes us. But I guess the sky's the limit when we talk about that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, isn't it? It's just a case of, and so many of my guests have said it on the podcast, and I'm sure they have on yours, in terms of, if one person hears my story and it helps one person, then every episode has been worth it, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, you're obviously a lot further into your podcast than I am, but even the and this isn't the part where we just praise each other for our
Oh yeah, we
podcast.
can do this now. We can go back and forth. We can do this because I got a lot of compliments
No,
now.
you're the best. No, your podcast is the
Girl,
best.
you're awesome. I'm telling you, you're the best. Well, I mean, together we're gonna do this thing.
We're going to change the world. But as I was saying to
That's
you
the goal.
before, is in terms of, the DMs that I've received on Instagram from the podcast, is it's just phenomenal. People that I would never have even thought
Mm-hmm.
would have reached out. And for a number of reasons, I speak about it a lot because of where I'm based in the Middle East, cultural reasons. They don't want to talk about grief or mental health. And my goodness, like that, that snowballs. And I
Oh
just
yeah.
think, someone's taken the time to listen to our podcast. Someone's taken the time to message us about our podcast, and hopefully it help them a little bit. That's just the tiniest thing. So what you're doing is phenomenal, because I just got a podcast. You've got this whole kind of community that you're putting together. So it might not be a competition, but you do have one up on me. But we'll see. We'll
Well, no,
see.
it's you know what? I never look at it as competition because I always look at it as, you know, my story can help, like you just
Yeah,
said,
yeah.
and I used to say that in the beginning, but then I upped the ante a little bit. I used to say if we can get one person and if my story can change their life, I'm doing great. So now I go, if I can reach 1,000 men and my
Mm,
story can change 500 of their lives, we can work on the other 500.
yeah,
And so when we do podcasts like this to me is like beautiful because we both are we're both normalizing the same thing, which is to talk about grief.
yeah.
There ain't no competition about that.
Oh,
That's
okay,
that's
fine,
called teamwork.
fine.
I know you
All
wanted to
right.
you wanted to compete, and
I just
I
was really
would,
up for a
but
fight, Tony. I was
I,
just really up for.
I'm not. I don't do the whole fighting thing anymore. I'm like, let's work together. We could do this, And
You're,
plus,
you're talking about
I'm
rock
afraid.
bottom, and I'm like ready to go.
I know, right? Like you all souped up, and I'm like, no, no, let's no, let's hug it out. Let's hug it out.
Just hug
Let's
it out.
hug it out.
Virtual hugs, virtual hugs. I
let's
hope you are
let's.
going to watch this on YouTube. If you're listening, please watch it on YouTube, because Tony and I are just virtually hugging it out.
Yes, we just did the whole virtual hug. We namaste and everything. I'm telling you.
When you hear, and I'm sure you've had the same reaction, and people say it to me, even friends and family, they're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry, I haven't listened to your podcast. It's just that I don't really. It's really sad, and I don't want to." And I'm like, "No, of course, totally understand. I get that, but if you listen to it, I think you'll be pleasantly surprised." And I've actually had amazing feedback, and I'm sure you have as well, because I'm
Yeah.
sure you've even in an audience, you've probably even got a lot of female listeners as well.
I do. I have a
Mm.
lot of female listeners, and so sometimes I get messages, and they go, I listened to half of it, had to stop because my eyes. I mean, because some of the stories, I love the stories that carry you there.
Mm, mm,
I
mm.
love those stories when you take me on that journey with you, and I'm able to be a part of those moments that you're sharing with me, and be able to ask the questions that I do. There's nothing else like it.
Yeah.
So I get a lot of people. I'm starting getting a lot of men to start to open up and come message me and go, I listened to this podcast right here, and I wonder if I could set up a time where I can talk to you because I realized that you know um reveals something about me. And I
Yeah.
think if I don't get the necessary support and help that I need, it's going to keep coming out. And I go,
Yeah.
you're absolutely right. So these podcasts are there to reveal a certain truth to people, but to also help people build a rapport with each other. So,
Mm.
someone can look at this and, on either end and go, you know what? I feel like I know that person. And
Yeah.
that's what it's about, right?
Mm.
We go through this life, we experience these journeys, these stories, these different chapters about who we are in order to give it away to the next person, because the next person that will look upon that can go, man, I can remember when I was that age, I did the same thing, right?
It's
Or
all
you may,
relatable. Yeah.
right, it's all relatable. Or you may say something about your loss that maybe you didn't reveal, or that may be something that you've hidden from yourself. So the podcast was a way to open up that door and go, I see it. Let's bring that out. And sometimes it comes
Mm.
out during the podcast, and I'm going, yep, this is going to get a lot deeper than what we thought. And next thing you know, 2 hours then gone by, and yeah, not a whole lot of editing.
No, no, I don't really edit mine. I genuinely
No,
I don't. At one time, I had to edit out about 12 minutes where me and my friend Nicole were talking about cats. But apart from
that's okay. You can be obsessed with the cat and everything if if that's what you want to do. But
When I emailed you, did I ask you for an Instagram and or a podcast recommendation?
you did not.
Damn it, Carl. Um, so prepared. So normally
But
with
that's
all of my
okay
guests, I'm
because
sure you would have one, right? So I'm going to ask you for either an
mhm.
Instagram account or another podcast that you would recommend because you love it.
Let's see. Well,
If you have
I
one,
can't
let
use
me
yours.
know.
Well, I can't use yours because
I
we're
mean,
talking on the Ammonia podcast. You know,
you kind of
other.
can.
Well, I would recommend yours. But well, I've been on so many great podcasts. Oh my God. It's kind of hard to just choose one because I wanted to just represent everyone.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really would. I would just like to represent everyone that I've been a part of because they've been great. And then if I was to just to say one name, I would probably get jumped. You know,
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
That really escalated. Okay. I
yeah,
wasn't expecting
they
that.
probably get me. But like, did you give me a shout out? You did, do And
All
then
right.
I'm
Well, I'll
like,
tell
it
you
wasn't
then.
me. I'm blaming you. And then I'm like, it wasn't me. She put me on the spot. I had to do something. Well, you couldn't do me. I wasn't the first one you thought. I'm like, help, help. So, if we ever do another Zoom chat, just remember, I'm gonna go. You were supposed to help me because you did this.
Right.
Like
Right.
I just
Noted.
can't go down okay, so
Okay, wow. Right. Okay. So, for any podcast recommendations, just go to Memories of Us and find anything that Tony has been a guest on. Top drawer. All right. Okay. Well, forget Memories of Us. Forget
okay,
everything that we've spoken about.
okay.
You, as Tony Lynch, picking up your phone on a daily basis, scrolling through your Instagram. What is there an Instagram account that you love? And it could be cat videos. I think you're the type. Is it,
Oh,
what's the where you look at it and you share it? You share it with your friends. I want to try and
um,
delve into the mind of Tony Lynch.
well, you don't want to do that.
Okay.
That's
Okay,
not
well,
a
this has been
fun
great.
place to.
Thanks, Tony. Bye.
No, actually, if you dove into my mind, you would find that I spend a lot of my time watching motivationals.
Yeah. You seem
Yeah,
like the kind of person to both benefit from that and to pay that forward.
yeah, I do. I spend even when I'm working out, I spend a lot of my time listening to motivationals, and so when it comes down to podcasts, it all depends on where I am in my playlist.
Okay.
But for I mean, I think for 5 6 hours or so, it's just
Wow.
constant motivationals as I'm going through the day. That's how I start my morning off. So I start my morning off with my yoga, and then I
Okay.
meditate. So
Okay.
I always have on my headphones. I have on, have those on, and my playlist kind of dictates how my mornings go. So when I'm doing yoga, I'm listening to sounds of rain,
Okay.
right? Thunder and rain. It helps you
Yeah.
relax, especially when you're going through the moments. And then when you get into your yoga, I normally go with traditional native flutes, and that kind of takes me on that journey of who I'm going to be for today,
No way. How
right?
long do you meditate for in the morning? Because it's come up a lot in quite a few episodes.
I normally try to go 45 minutes, 2 hours, depending. And depending on what the question is that I have in my head at that moment
Okay.
that I'm meditating. So some of them, some of them, if I'm trying to decipher a deeper meaning behind it, it may go 45 minutes, but it all depends. And if I have this one saying in my head or something, I have to be able to break it down. But then I have to analyze it in a way to where, it makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm constantly trying to stay in a more calm state of mind. So meditation has been a huge part of all of that. And so I guess it would actually vary.
That's amazing. It is so interesting the amount of um the amount of podcast guests I've had on recently that would talk about meditation in the morning, daily affirmations, or writing down of an evening what you're thankful for and been grateful for the day.
Hmm.
There's been quite a few mentions in my own life recently. You know, weirdly, when something is said and then you haven't heard it before and then you keep hearing it like in quick
Hmm.
succession, is oh my goodness, what's his name? Robin Sharma's 5 a.m. Club.
Oh, okay, yeah, yeah.
So there's been a lot of talk about that, and just, you know, get up and start your day at 5 a.m. and it's this and it's that. And I find it fascinating the more and more that more and more people, and again, I think whether it's because of now the community that I've surrounded myself with, that I'm hearing more about it, or whether that it's not that it's in fashion, but I think that it's people are more open to talking about it, because meditation is for hippies, isn't it? It's for like, okay, right, but you're going to be doing that's what I think used to conjure up in people's mind,
Mhm.
not even what, 10, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Am I totally off?
No, you're not off at all. They depending on the generation that you grew up in.
Yeah.
I'm a '70s baby, so I did grow up in a generation where there was hippies, and when I grew up, there wasn't a whole lot of people meditating or doing yoga.
Just
Especially
smoking a
not in my
lot of
neighborhood.
weed.
Yeah, a lot of that, a lot of jerry carols and things like that. So, yeah, so Michael Jackson was big back then. Just to give me an idea, I'm not old. I'm just seasoned.
Sure.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah, I'm
Like a
just seasoned.
fine wine.
I wouldn't say fine wine. I wouldn't
Oh,
say that.
okay.
I would say I'm like a dry rub for a barbecue.
Oh, I bet you're
Ugh,
really good at barbecue, aren't you?
I am. Mm.
See, what did I tell you about the fact that I haven't even had my dinner before
I
we
know, and I just
recorded?
had to throw that in there because I knew you was probably like, you know what, you got me
Oh my
hungry.
God, all I just want is steak now on the barbecue. We'll have like some like sweet corn on there as well. I'd
Oh,
have that. My dad used to wrap up the sweet corn in the tin foil and just put like just
mm.
like an obscenely unhealthy amount of butter in the foil.
It all depends on who's eating it, right?
True.
Like it may be healthy. Who am I to judge?
That's
It's
true.
on the corn, right?
That's
Don't judge the corn. Just go with it. Go with it. If you get a little bit on your chin, don't worry about it. Save it for later, but don't stop. You know.
You know
Just-
that from my podcast, I've started doing quotes, like motivational quotes from my podcast guests. Don't judge the corn has got to be one of the motivational quotes from my podcast.
Don't judge the
Anyway,
corn. I know,
right? So
right?
you're a
We all
what?
are.
You're a smoked rub? Did you say? What did you say?
Yes, that's because it's like I'm a mixture of all kinds of seasonings,
Right,
you
right.
know. But when they're apart, they just kind of have their own little individual thing. But together, it's like, hey, there's some magic that went on there. I'm a dry rub. There's some magic that went on there, right?
Have you ever used that analogy before?
I have not.
Brilliant. I love that I've been a part of that. You were just like, hell, I'm a dry rub. And
I'm a
that has
dry
just
rub, right?
that's
You
gonna stay
know.
with me forever. God, if you're a dry rub, I can't even begin to think what I am. What's
Hmm.
I'm like a cauliflower. I'm like pasty white.
No,
Some
no,
people like me.
that's
Some
not a
people
rub. That's not a rub. That's
oh, a rub. Oh
yeah.
no, okay. So I would be all right. Okay, so I can't think of an analogy, but I would be the cheese for macaroni cheese.
I
I
like it.
mean, it binds all the pastas together, and it's really, really nice. Tony, I'm going to stop this podcast now. We've gone over an hour. I think we've gone slightly delusional. Oh my God.
I mean, are you having hunger pains? I mean, it's okay if you are.
I'm so hungry because now all I want is steak and mac and cheese.
You're gonna have a whole lot of editing to do.
Do you know what? I'm probably not even going to edit it. Do you know what I mean?
This is awesome. No,
you've got
this
this
that is.
amazing reputation of you being this wonderful, beautiful person. And I'm just like, man, this guy wants to be driver. Tony Lynch, you
Oh
have
my
been
God.
absolutely amazing. And I'm so grateful for you taking the time because my goodness, we scheduled this in about 2 weeks ago and then you panicked me and said, are we still on for the 27th? And I'm like, what?
I
Um,
know, and like when I messaged you back, I was like, I'm such a scatterbrain. So I'm doing maybe 7 or 8 podcasts a week.
wow.
So when the emails come in, on top of
Yeah.
what I do, with the nonprofit, I'm constantly setting up guests. I'm sorry, and being guests on other people's shows. Sometimes, when I wouldn't recommend this going 3 days without sleep and then trying to send emails to people, because then you get what you got. And I was like, I'm such a scatterbrain. I mean,
Thank you so much. You've been amazing. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have because I'm literally beaming like ear to ear.
I had a blast. Thank you for having me on.
Yeah, you're really
And
welcome. You're
and
really welcome.
I hope you enjoyed going on this journey with me and
I
allow me
did.
to share my story with you.
Yeah, I did, and I'm genuinely I'm so grateful for you sharing your story because my goodness, what a story you have of which I didn't know much about it, and I've got a funny feeling that we'll be speaking again, and this may be the beginning of a beautiful, beautiful friendship.
Well, I would love that and everything because I have to have you on my show.
But I'm not a boy.
But you have a story.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. I could definitely put you in touch with my brothers. They can probably do something. But yeah, I'd be very honored to be a guest. So as I am, I'm so happy for you to have taken the time out of your busy day on a Sunday as well. And I'll speak to you very, very soon.
All right. I appreciate that.
Take care. You be good. See you. Bye.
Bye bye.